If the fish could talk, it would have told him to bugger off. Greetings and welcome to Roman of the Empire. I'm your host, Roman. Today we are going to discuss Moon Knight, Episode 1, The Goldfish Problem. So before we get into the Disney Plus Marvel series, I wanted to give you some background on who Moon Knight is as a comic book character, because I know most of you don't know. It's not a big character. It's not like a failing on your part. It's just, he's not a Batman. He's not a Captain America, although Batman's DC. That's neither here nor there. But he's not one of the big players. He's not Iron Man. He's not Thor. So you probably have not heard of Moon Knight before. So, who is Moon Knight? Mark Spector was a mercenary, left for dead in the desert, and he's revived by the Egyptian god of the moon, Khonshu. He's appointed as his high priest, which basically gives Mark all these powers. Moon Knight, who he becomes, he's supposed to protect those who travel the night, and a bunch of other things as well. So he also has a dissociative identity disorder. What is that? That's what is commonly referred to as split personality. There's a couple other folks rattling around up in Mark's head. Millionaire Stephen Grant, who we're going to talk about the version of this character in the series, and cab driver Jake Lockley, who we haven't seen in the series yet, and I doubt we're going to visit that. So Mark was in the Marines. He's in Iraq, and he ends up getting discharged from the Marines because they realize he's batshit crazy. So then he later, as Moon Knight, or a version of that, ends up working with the CIA, which is kind of interesting. But the CIA has some sketchy hiring practices. Please don't cancel this video or visit my house, CIA agents. So Mark makes a fortune in gambling to support it, and he uses this money to support crime fighting and the things that he does. And he uses the Stephen Grant personality as a financier, basically another way to hide himself, almost like a Bruce Wayne type character. And the cabbie, Jake Lockley, is kind of, that personality is his eyes and ears on the ground. He's able to gather information and be a regular Joe, just blending in. So he has worked with nearly every major superhero in the Marvel universe, though, which is interesting. Now, again, if you follow the Marvel comics, and you probably have, at least on a regular basis, you probably have some idea who Moon Knight is. But if you're just an MCU person, you don't. And he was actually even part of the West Coast Avengers for a period, which is an interesting thing. Moon Knight doesn't have a problem with violence. And unlike Batman, he crosses the line. He will kill. He doesn't have an issue with that. He doesn't have a moral hang-up about that kind of stuff. So what are his powers? Enhanced brain function, because he's got an Egyptian god rattling around up there as well. So it's kind of rewired his brain, and it makes him resistant to telepathic attacks. Like, think Professor X, although he's a good guy, but if he gets inside your head, it's not good for you necessarily. So he can hold off that kind of stuff. They say immortal, but that's a little bit of a misnomer. Mark can die, Moon Knight can die, but the Egyptian god Khonshu resurrects him. So it's effectively immortal, but again, he can die. He's master of all forms of hand-to-hand combat. Again, much like Batman. And very high tolerance to pain. A lot of that is due to his split personalities. That's given him this kind of interesting ability to tolerate pain. He can switch back and forth. He's very strong. He's not like Superman strong, but he's very strong. And in the light of the full moon, he's at his strongest, and he can lift about 2 tons or so. So putting that to practical application in fighting and all that kind of stuff. His suit, the interesting Moon Knight suit, is, now this is the comic book, not the series again, I have to say that. It's Kevlar and adamantium, which is the stuff that coats Wolverine's skeleton, making it obviously very, very durable. He can't fly, but his cloak gives semi the illusion of that. He can jump from great heights, glide down using his cloak, guide where he's going, and it's almost the illusion of flight. So that's who Moon Knight is. He also, his primary base of operation was New York, like a lot of the heroes. And I did say he did work in LA as a West Coast Avenger for a time. So that's the comic book version of Moon Knight. In the series, which we're going to talk about right now, with episode 1, this is going to be one of 6, by the way, the goldfish problem. And he has a pet goldfish. It has 1 fin. Anyway, Oscar Isaac plays Moon Knight, Stephen Grant, and Mark Spector. Ethan Hawke is Arthur Harrow. He's kind of a cult leader type dude. And F. Murray Abraham, who is an old-timey actor, I'm actually surprised they brought him out for this, is the voice of Khonshu. And he adds a nice element to the show. I'd throw a spoiler alert in here. There's not a lot to spoil, though. If you've seen the previews, you know what's going to happen, not exactly how it happens. And I'm going to go into some detail on the show just so you can get a feel for it. But there's not a lot to spoil. There are no major, amazing revelations about what's going on here. So with that in mind, please stick around for the ride. It was directed by Mohammed Deeb, who I had not heard of, but anyway. And so, I watched it twice yesterday. Twice, because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. I didn't. And my impression overall of the show, it was dull, which I was kind of depressed about. I was really looking forward to the show. Of all the Marvel shows that are coming out, aside from the What If series, which I really enjoyed and I've talked about in the past, the Disney Marvel Plus stuff hasn't been great. And right now, this isn't on it's not on a good trajectory, but maybe that'll change. So Oscar Isaac, I like Oscar Isaac as an actor. He's a very capable actor. But he's either playing this part poorly or it was written poorly, maybe a bit of both. I tend to think it's probably the latter, though. As, like I said, Oscar Isaac is a very capable actor, although he was in that Star Wars movie. Well, the series of Star Wars movies that were not good. So this series right now, and I have to say right now because we are only in episode 1, is focusing on Stephen Grant. He's British for some reason in this show, and he's just a mealy-mouthed little guy, lives in London, works at a museum. He talks like this. He's got a very, very small voice. He's a very small person, so he's got a very small voice. And he's quirky, but not like in a good way. And literally everybody on the show dislikes him, and it's not hard to see why. He's like a less charming version of Joaquin Phoenix's Arthur Fleck from The Joker. Just kind of a loser dude. He's uninteresting. He's, like I said, he doesn't really have much of a personality. He's got just this small, whiny personality. So there, again, major contrast to the comic version where he's a millionaire, Bruce Wayne style character. And I think that's what Moon Knight is, kind of a Marvel version of that, but that's neither here nor there. So the look of the show is okay. It's not terrible, but it's not remarkable. And again, overall, it was just kind of dull. So now we're going to get into just some of the meat of the show. And again, there's not going to be anything that I could qualify as a spoiler here because there really wasn't anything. So Stephen has what we believe is a sleep disorder. He wakes up in odd places. He has a series of things in his apartment to help him not leave. So he wanders in his sleep. He wakes up, like I say, wakes up in weird places. He leaves the house, and this actually is a thing. I mean, this happens to people. But so he chains himself to the bed effectively. He's got tape on the door so he knows as he left. He's got sand surrounding his bed so he can see if he has footprints, and that's how he tries to contain himself. He does end up having lost time. He misses dates. He's late to work. So this is not a good thing for him. So he's got all these things in place, but somehow it fails. It fails, and he ends up in, I believe it's Norway, in a town controlled by cult leader Arthur Harrow, played by Ethan Hawke. And he answers to the Egyptian goddess Ammit. And using her power, Arthur judges people in this town. He comes, will you be judged? We want to make everything like heaven. It's kind of weird. He's not a really charismatic character, or it's just, again, maybe the way he's written. So he's got a tattoo on his forearm of a scale, and so he puts a cane he holds the person's hands, the cane swings back and forth like a pendulum, a little bit weird. And the scale on his arm will tip one way or another. One way it's good, you're good to go, yay. If it tips the other way, it turns red, it's bad, and you die. So I don't know why people are willingly doing this, but they are. But he is a cult leader. I mean, after a fashion, I assume that's what this is all about. But he has people controlling the town with guns and that kind of thing. So it's like a Norwegian Jonestown. I don't know. So anyway, so forgive me. I've lost my train of thought. I'm going to die from the Egyptian god Ammit. Stephen ends up here. He's getting shot at by people he doesn't know. He has no idea why he's here. And he gets a big booming voice in his head. Oh, the idiot's in charge. And he's like, he has no idea where this is coming from. He has an amulet that suddenly he doesn't know where it came from. Hilarity ensues. The character of Arthur and his minions are trying to get the amulet back. Stephen is being semi-controlled by a force. He wants to give him the amulet. He can't give him the amulet. He goes on the run. It's just a series of kind of missteps and not a very good car chase. And suddenly, oh no, let me backtrack a little bit. Stephen ends up with lost time during this period. He gets surrounded by guys. He flashes out. He comes back. Everybody's on the ground, bleeding out, and he has no idea how this happened. So obviously he's checking out. Someone else is checking him. But he ends up back in New York or in London. I'm sorry, and where he's in his bed. He's chained up. The tape's on the door. All this, so he thinks it was a dream. But he's supposed to be going on a date on Friday. This for calendar purposes. He gets all his shit together. He goes to have his date. And well, actually, we have the goldfish problem here as well. So while he's looking at his goldfish, the fun fin one, he realizes it has a fin. Again, it has two proper fins. So he goes to the pet store. The girl's like, well, you were in here yesterday. And he's like, I wasn't here yesterday. So again, we're getting the line up that he's checked out sometimes. Realizes he has a date. He forgot about it. He looks at the time. He's like, oh my God, that can't be the time. Remember, he has lost time. Goes back, gets changed, goes to the restaurant, is sitting there, and he's waiting and waiting and waiting, and the date doesn't show. And he calls her, and she's like, I was there 2 days ago when the date was supposed to happen, although she says it with a British accent and sounds better than me. And he's like, but today's Friday. And she's like, no, good luck, it's Sunday. So he lost 2 days. He goes back to his apartment. He's sad. he sees some scratch marks on the floor. He moves the table to where the marks end. He looks up in the boards. He finds his cell phone and a key. And he doesn't know where these are from. He starts making a call on it. And then he hears a voice inside his head telling him to stop. This isn't the booming voice calling him an idiot. This is a non-British voice telling him to stop. You're going to get in trouble. So we're back at the museum again. He thinks he's being pursued by people because he's seeing things now. The Arthur Harrow character shows up at the museum. He still wants the amulet back. He explains where it came from. It belonged to the Egyptian goddess Ammit, who he kind of works for. More hilarity ensues about a bunch of non-interesting things. A big CGI dog chases Stephen. The CGI isn't fantastic. You don't really get a good look at it. It's just kind of there, but you know it's a big CGI dog. It gets him cornered in a bathroom. He's locked himself in the bathroom. The big CGI dog can't get in. And then he starts having a conversation with himself in the mirror. It's Mark Spector talking to him, telling him to let him take control so he can save them. Stephen grudgingly gives up control, and you see the formation of Moon Knight start to take place. The dog bursts into the bathroom. Then you see the bathroom basically come apart, and Moon Knight beating the shit out of the big CGI dog. Moon Knight, for what it's worth, Moon Knight, the character, for the 15 seconds he's on screen, does look good. I like the look of Moon Knight. I think he looks cool. Not really the traditional... Okay, so he looks like Moon Knight, but doesn't. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the basic shape of the costume is the same and everything, but it's more like a... almost like a mummy bandages kind of thing, the whole Egyptian tie-in. It's clever-ish. So that I did like. That's the only thing I liked about the episode, though. So that's really about it. That's what you got out of episode 1. You didn't really, like I said, you didn't get any of the backstory, and I don't know what the backstory is going to be in this version because it's very different than the comic book. I'm going to continue to watch the show in hopes that it does get better because I was really looking forward to this, and my expectations have, as they say, been subverted. They've gone, like I said, they've gone off the rail with the character, which unfortunately is something that Disney Plus Marvel tends to do. All of their live shows, minus the What If series, which I enjoyed, were not good. They totally dorked up most of the characters sometimes in a way and sometimes in many ways. Will this get better? I hope so. So I'm going to be doing a review of this every Thursday. And again, right now, I'm hoping they can just salvage it. I realize the character is off the rails, but if it can at least be entertaining, that would be something. We're not there yet. So join me next time. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I really do appreciate it. But that's all for now. I am Roman of the Empire, signing off. Be kind.